Mark Rogers TV going to ACC country in Pittsburgh with the Pitt Panthers positional breakdowns heading to spring practice with Jim Hammett from Cardiac Hill. Jim, we're going to talk some wide receivers. And, of course, Dontez Ford's gone. Trey Tripton contributed. But Jester Wee, and I watched Pitt football a number of times, and I don't know that I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, even after watching 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, that's Jesper Weah. He kind of emerged last year as the number one receiving threat, redshirt junior. And, all throughout his career, we heard about, he's this great athlete. He's 6'3", 210 pounds. He can run like the wind. He can jump. But, he wasn't a big recruit out of high school. He came from Madison, Wisconsin. He was a Paul Christ find, kind of an unsung recruit. But, he finally showed some emergence last year. He really came up big, and I think the big number for him was 24.2 yards per catch. I mean, he's really a big play threat, and he can stretch the defense. So for a new quarterback like Max Brown, I think he's going to like having Weah on the team.
Yeah, he's not a guy that's catching 10 balls a game, but my goodness. So 36 over 13 games, he's catching less than 3 a game. But when they go to him, it really counts. 10 touchdowns. And you mentioned, I think that figure is the best yards per catch average in the country. Kadri Henderson, a guy that saw 26 times through the air, but became the jet sweep guy and really tore up defenses with over 650 yards rushing. So he's in the mix as well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's actually Pitt's leading returning rusher with over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think Pitt fans and coaches alike want to see a little bit more out of him from the passing game. When you kind of try to find a comparison for Kadri Henderson, you kind of look at a former West Virginia player, Tavon Austin, kind of a undersized, good ball carrier. I mean, Kadri Henderson was a first-team All-American as a kick returner. He's a really, really good player. So if they can get a little bit more out of him in the passing game, I think it really opens up, everything, especially for Weah, the tight ends, the running game even. To have that kind of weapon and that kind of speed, they need more than just big runs out of them.
Trey Tripton caught 12 passes. He scored a touchdown. We see 3 pretty substantial recruits, 2 out of Florida, 1 out of Pennsylvania, and Dontavius Butler, Darian Street, and Michael Smith. Not exceptionally rated players, but basically top 150 to top 180 players at their position. Do you see any of the rest of these guys vying for a playing time?
I think Tipton definitely will see some action. He's kind of a solid slot receiver. He can also run the ball a little bit. Another guy was a true freshman that got on the field a little bit this past year was Aaron Matthews. He's actually Pitt's tallest wide receiver at 6'4". So, he got on the field. He wasn't overly productive, but I think he's someone that can, make an impact. And as you mentioned with the true freshman, I really like Michael Smith out of Vero Beach, Florida. He was first team All-State in the 8A classification in Florida, had 24 touchdowns this year. And, he really came on the scene late. He started playing football late, but, this big senior year, he got a Pitt offer, he got a Notre Dame offer. He visited Pitt and shut down his recruitment. So he kind of exploded late, but I think he's kind of a hidden gem in the class.
Hey, Jim, we talked about Aston at fullback being a security blanket for Nathan Peterman, but the same could be said for Scott Orndorff. He caught 35 passes at tight end, but he's gone. Looking at the roster, looking at the depth chart, there's not a whole lot there at tight end, but there's a lot of talent coming in from the 2017 signing class.
Yeah, absolutely. Pitt's tight end ranks are definitely depleted at the moment. They need to, get some contributors that didn't contribute last year, and I think it starts with Chris Clark, the UCLA transfer who sat out last season. He was one time the number 1 recruit in the country, tight end recruit in the country. He had a wacky recruitment where I think he committed to North Carolina, then Michigan, ended up at UCLA, played a game, decided to transfer, and lo and behold, ended up at Pitt. So, I mean, he's really, really good, and he really kind of boosts the position at tight end.
Chris Clark, that one escaped me. I remember the name. I remember his recruitment. I remember his announcement on ESPN, actually from ESPN, and it was down to Michigan, I believe, and UCLA at the time, and he decided to go out west, and I had lost track of him, so he's headed to Pitt. So he obviously, much like some of the other guys we're talking about, Max Brown in particular, has not necessarily the experience or the track record at this level, but the scouts love him. He has got all the ability to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Pitt fans are pretty excited about Clark. And of the incoming freshmen, one of them, at least one of them, is going to have to play because you need more than one tight end. And I think everyone's kind of pointing to Charles Reeves. He was a 4-star recruit out of Ohio, had a lot of great offers, big athlete. He was more of a receiving threat in high school, so they need to teach him how to block. But he's a big body, a lot of talent. So I think it's going to be Clark and Reeves kind of man in the tight end position this year.
Yeah, Reeves, out of 3 prospects coming in this class, definitely rated the highest, 8th rated tight end, according to 247 Sports, out of Steubenville, which is pretty much on the border between Ohio and Pennsylvania. 16th rated player out of Ohio, and Grant Kerrigan and Tyler Sear, probably options for down the road. All right, Jim Hammett from Cardiac Hill on SB Nation joining us to break down Pitt position by position. Jim, we always appreciate the breakdown.
Thanks for having me.